Welcome to the Sanctuary Network, your weekly home for conversations that awaken the heart, heal the body, and inspire the spirit. I'm your host, Mary Ellen Popyk, the creator of Spirit Fest and the Natural Wellness Expos. For 2 decades, I've been creating spaces, now creating a bold new broadcast for mind, body, and spirit, where seekers, healers, and teachers come together to share wisdom, laughter, and transformation. We've seen what happens when communities gather. People become enlivened. Now, through the Sanctuary Network, that same spirit is reaching you, wherever you are in the world. Each week, we'll sit down with thought leaders, authors, and everyday visionaries. We'll also shine a light on the grassroots voices of the Sanctuary Marketplace, the healers, vendors, and practitioners who make this movement thrive. This isn't just another show, it's your sanctuary, a space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with what matters most. So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and join me. Together, let's step into the sanctuary. Everyone to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit. We are live this evening with Dr. Doron Shalev. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
For those of you that come to Spirit Fest, you'll know Doron is a regular and much beloved, I might say. You've been with us for quite a few years, I think, even.
4 years since I started actually everything. Yeah. You were
Wow.
my very first show.
Time flies when we're having fun.
It sure does.
Let me give you a proper introduction to everyone. And then we've got so much to talk about and get into. I know everybody's going to learn a lot more about you. So today's guest is someone who lives comfortably in 2 worlds that many people assume could never coexist. Dr. Doron Shalev is a chemistry professor, former National Science Foundation postdoctoral scholar, and an award-winning author whose academic career has focused on inorganic material chemistry. But outside the laboratory, he has spent years immersed in the study and practice of Jewish mysticism, meditation, energy healing, and consciousness. Rather than seeing science and spirituality as competing explanations of reality, Dr. Shalev believes they answer different kinds of questions. Science explores how the universe works, while spirituality explores why we experience the meaning, purpose, and consciousness that we do. Through his work as a spiritual advisor, energy healer, and founder of the Modern Mystic Project, he helps people integrate ancient mystical wisdom with modern scientific understanding in a practical, accessible way. So today we're going to explore ghosts, consciousness, Reiki, Jewish mysticism, the science behind energy healing, and why so many people are searching for deeper meaning in today's world. So again, welcome. I told people we're having a real live PhD professor on our show today. So tell us a little bit before we kind of get into, because I know you've probably actually been studying spirituality longer than you've been studying chemistry. Is that right?
Yep. Ever since I was a kid.
So what brought you into chemistry?
Well, it started, like I said, ever since I was a kid, I've been very interested in spirituality and God and why we're here, what creation and existence is all about, what our purpose is. And I remember asking these questions as, the first questions I ever asked my mom were these type of questions. And unfortunately, when I was 4 years old, I had a brother who died. He was just a month old. He died of SIDS. And so
Oh,
that brought up the whole question of what's death and all. So I think that greatly impacted my life. And so fast forward many years later, and I'm getting ready to go to college, what am I going to do and all of this? And I just have always been drawn to science and looking for those answers. And I thought I would find the answers in religion, but there were more questions than answers. So I thought, well, maybe science will have those answers for me. And so I
hmm.
started studying science. And honestly, another reason why I went into chemistry is because I love cooking. And cooking is just chemistry in the
Right.
kitchen. And so if you ask any chemist, I think almost every chemist you'll meet either likes cooking and or baking, and I love both. And so I
Hmm.
think combined with my curiosity, my needing to know the answers, and my own practical experience in the kitchen just drew me to chemistry specifically. I actually
Wow.
wanted to be an astronomer. And
Uh-huh.
so that was my dream. I wanted to be an astronomer, an astrophysicist, and study black holes and things like that, maybe work for SETI. But my math skills and physics just weren't up to par. And so I
Hmm.
decided I was going to be an astrochemist.
Hmm.
And by the time I got to graduate school, I was really drawn towards materials chemistry instead. And so that's why I ended up in materials chemistry there.
So what exactly is that? What are the materials that
Uh-huh.
you're
Well, we study the structure property relationships of things. So basically, we make a new compound. We study the way that atoms and molecules are put together, and we study the properties and try to correlate the two. And so if
Mhm.
we make small shifts to the structure, how does that affect the properties? And
Wow.
so I'm actually a crystal engineer. And so I make crystals and I study crystal interactions within them. And so I
Uh-huh.
study, my primary investigation tool is X-ray crystallography. And so I literally shoot X-rays into crystals. Those crystals interact with the X-rays. And then I look at that interaction and come up with the structure of the compound.
So do you really study crystals as a spiritual tool or for
It's
those types of energetic properties?
It's funny because when I first started getting into returning to my spirituality, I guess, which happened back in COVID, I think a lot of us did a lot of soul searching in COVID. So that brought me back to everything. And how it started, I was actually reading this book called Why Woo Woo Works. It was on my reading list, it was at the very top of it. And it was written by a PhD chemist in Scotland. And I thought, well, if I'm going to learn about this woo woo stuff, I think I'm going to learn it from someone that speaks the same language I do. And in there was a chapter on crystals and crystal healing and all of that. And I thought, well, if I'm going to resonate with any chapter in this book, it's going
Hmm.
to be that chapter. And so I
Hmm.
read it. It was kind of interesting, but I didn't really learn anything. It's kind of everything I expected because he does take a very scientific approach, but he's very open-minded spiritually. And so he talked about, color psychology and visualization effects and using them as symbols and things like this. And I could really relate to those things. But I wasn't finding them that useful in terms of healing. In terms of exploring and spiritual healing, they were useful. But in terms of like energy healing and things like that, which is where I was kind of felt like I was being drawn to, it really wasn't speaking to me. And so, yeah, crystals did impact my study in spirituality. It's how I started actually.
Wow.
And I'm actually
So
surrounding myself with crystals right now because I was a little nervous coming in. So I'm going to grab my little tiger eye, angel here, wearing some bracelets. So I definitely use them, whether
and
psychologically,
I
spiritually,
fully
both.
believe that they work, that they have
Oh, I
properties.
do. I
So
think they
yeah.
do actually resonate with our chakras.
Mm.
Those frequencies, I think there's some connection there that they're connected to both worlds, the
Hmm.
spiritual and the physical. And so they're
Hmm.
a great pathway to explore your spirituality.
And then we could get into things like crystal skulls, like is the cut of the, if we just had a round crystal of the same, type, but
Hmm.
then when the skulls are cut, does it enhance what it does? Does it make it different? Because I do think that the crystal skulls do have some different properties than other things too. Have you really looked into that?
I think the most important aspect when it comes to crystals and using them spiritually is actually their size. I think the size is the most important fact more than their cut, but I think the cut comes into play with that whole symbolism and the fact that our consciousness really does impact reality.
Right.
And so when you are using that crystal skull for whatever you're using for you, that symbol has meaning to you and you're
Hmm.
able to translate that and manifest something in
Hmm.
reality. So I think it does have true power in that way.
I'm going
Um,
back to the original 12 or 13 skulls that there were in ancient times
yeah.
that sat in a circle and then they, shared information and it was like a library. And that's why I just wondered, that's a whole nother
Definitely, the
conversation,
larger
whole
the
nother
crystal,
show.
yeah, definitely. And the larger the crystal, the more information you can definitely store in it, transmit in it, the more power it can transmit. So, yeah, definitely.
So let's go back to when you were young. When is the first time that you really remember just like, questioning the mysteries of life?
I think it was probably the first time my mother told me a story from the Bible. And I don't
Hmm.
remember if it's Noah or David and Goliath, but it was one of those stories. I think it was Noah. And, I was very curious. I'm here like, how did Noah fit every single animal onto that ark? How was it two by two? How about all the insects? What did they eat? Where did they go to the bathroom? I was thinking about these very pragmatically as a 3 or 4 year old kid. And so I think that was the first one that opened the curiosity there.
Hmm.
And from there, I just started exploring religion and spirituality a lot through high school. In fact, I very much considered entering some sort of religious profession there as I was graduating high school. Uh, but I think what really cemented it for me was an experience I had when I was actually in college. I actually had two experiences in college that kind of cemented it for me. And I was, I think I was a junior. I just returned back from studying abroad in France. I was living above Mays All Sports in downtown Lock Haven, where I went to college. And I had a roommate there. And when you walked into the apartment, you walked into the dining room. And it was a great apartment. I loved it. But every time I walked into that dining room, I just had a weird sensation. I was kind of creeped out. I wasn't sure what it was yet. But the more I interacted with that energy, I started feeling more and more things. And so one day we had a corner in the dining room where we kept the cat's toys. And I looked at my roommate and I said, why is it that when we clean up the cat's toys and put them in that corner, they never go to the toys? But if we take them out of that corner, they'll go crazy and play with the toys. And he is like, oh, that's because that's where the old man sits. And I about shit my pants, crap my pants.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, because that's the feeling I was getting. I felt like there was an old man sitting in that corner. And it was a former tenant that had lived in that apartment before us who had passed away in the apartment. And so after that, I actually began visually seeing him as much as you can visually see a ghost. It's like I think I saw him through my third eye or something. It's like I could see it, an actual figure presence there. But if I looked with my eyes, there was nothing. But
And
I
how
could see
old were
it. It
you?
was crazy. I probably 20, 21, right around that.
Okay, okay.
And I even remember one time I was, and he never left the dining room. And so sometimes I just run through the dining room real fast if I was home alone, and I'd be a little scared and creeped out. But there was a long hallway just off the dining room that led to the only bathroom. And I remember one time too, he followed me right up to that hallway and he stood right there at the entrance and watched me walk down that hallway to the bathroom. I kept looking back and there he was just staring at me. He would not take one step into that hallway. So for whatever reason, he was very locked into that dining room. But
Mm-hmm.
so take it, you can take that with a grain of salt. Some people may believe the story, some people may not. But then about a year or two later, when I didn't live there anymore, I was working in the student union, or we called it the pub, and I was going around doing my whatever I had to do. I don't remember, and I was talking to another worker there who worked the front desk. And she stopped me. She's like, "Hey, wait a second. You used to live above Mays All Sports, didn't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I think it was about 2 years ago." And she's like, "I got to ask you something." And as soon as she said that, I knew what she wanted to ask. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell. And I was like, "Oh, what?" And she's like, "No, no, no, forget it. It's crazy." And I'm like, "No, no, come on, you tell me anything. We're friends, we talk all the time. Just what is it?" She's like, "Well, no, you're going to think I'm crazy." Da, da, da. I was like, "Is this about the old man in the corner?" And she about shit her, oh, sorry, crapped her pants. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
And too, and so we had that interaction. And so we were sharing all the stories. She's like, "Yeah, he just sits in the corner, blah, blah, blah." And so I think that really cemented it for me there.
Hmm.
Also, I've only experienced night terrors like 3 or 4 times in my life, and only in two locations. Once when I was a postdoc, and then a few times in that apartment. And so I don't know if that was actual night terrors or if that was,
Mm-hmm.
something more like some people
Mm-hmm.
might say it's alien abduction. It might be some sort of spiritual interaction, demons,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anything like that. I don't know. I remember the first time it happened, I was very scared, and I actually did believe I was being abducted by aliens. I could see them in my peripheral vision. But who knows? And so
Wow.
those two experiences really cemented to me that there's something beyond this veil.
Mm-hmm.
Before then, I think it was more a matter of faith. And at that point was the switch,
Yeah, then when you get to that point when you're old enough and you're thinking about some of these experiences you're having, then you really do question whether or not you're sane.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you having some type of mental break or having a dissociative disorder or something? But then that's why it's good to be able to talk to other people about it.
Yeah.
And then you realize when other people are having the experiences as well that you're not crazy.
Exactly, because I've never experienced that kind of feeling before. I think it was my first, if you want to call it a psychic experience, that was it there in that room with that ghost there.
Wow. Wow. So
Very strong.
when you were a kid, did you have any inklings or, urges to investigate different things or again, what had you gravitate towards the spirituality?
I grew up in a very rural place. My entire hometown has, I think, 3,000 people in it. The entire county is about 10,000, 15,000 people. And most of the county is state forest land. And so I grew up exploring nature, climbing trees, spending all day in the forest or out in the weeds, sometimes as we call it. And I think that connection to nature really ignite something in people, especially if you're open to those things. So I
Hmm.
remember just spending hours just walking through the forest, just praying, meditating, contemplating, nothing intentionally. It just came naturally.
Hmm.
And also, my hometown is kind of a weird place in that I remember growing up, they would sometimes call it the spontaneous human combustion capital of the world. We have one of the most famous cases in our hometown. We've actually had two or three cases, but you can only really ever find the one if you Google it. We had Unsolved Mysteries in my hometown a couple of times shooting this story. And, there were sightings of Bigfoots. I do believe I saw UFOs a couple of times because
Hmm.
we have the darkest skies on the eastern seaboard where I'm from. And so you could see the Milky Way. It was amazing. I think that's where my love of astronomy started.
Hmm.
And so I definitely think I saw UFOs a few times. I
Hmm.
never saw Bigfoot, but I heard people that had. And
What
so I think
state is
all of
this
that,
in?
it's Pennsylvania.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And it's a place called Potter County. Everyone has a hunting lodge there, but very few
Okay.
people actually live there. Um, So when I went from my hometown to college, the town I went to college in was 10,000 people, and the university was 3,500 people, and that was bigger than my entire county. And so
Wow.
it's a bit of a culture shock. Anyways, getting a little off track, I think there, but
No,
anyways, so
this is
that's kind of
interesting because
my origin story, so to speak.
it shows the foundation of how you got to where you are. So that's why
Yeah,
it is really interesting. And I do know that Pennsylvania has a lot of, I think, of Children of the Corn. Um, isn't
yeah,
no, Mothman was West Virginia.
yeah.
But
I'm
they're
obsessed with Mothman. I love. Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories.
yeah. So that area definitely has a lot of, sort of undercurrent of different woo,
Yeah,
so to speak.
definitely.
Um, so you grew up religious.
No, not actually. I grew up in a very secular household. Religion was
Oh.
not much of a so before my baby brother died, I think my mom she kind of did religion a little bit. Like I told you, she'd sometimes read us the basic stories from the Bible.
Hmm.
But when my brother died, forget it. No more
Mm.
religion in the house.
Wow.
Nothing really. So I grew up rather secular, and I think that also fueled my desire to learn about religion because I
Hmm.
just had all these questions. And, I'd ask my mom question after question, probably drove her nuts. And, she'd give me answers sometimes, but usually she just brushed it off. And so that just, of
Hmm.
course, ignited my curiosity even more. And
Hmm.
I'm one of those kids, I'm a very odd person. Most kids, they get off for the summer and they go and play and explore, and I'm heading to the library and getting
Hmm.
books and learning new things and reading new things. And that's how I spent my summers. And so I think I taught myself almost everything I know concerning religion, spirituality, and all of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I had a Catholic father and a Mormon mother. So,
Wow.
but I had been baptized Catholic when I was young.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting dichotomy, to go between the two.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
but then I just realized later I just was really interested in all religions anyway. But as you know, I'm very drawn to the Jewish tradition.
Hmm.
It's the oldest monotheistic religion that there is, and I feel like everything kind of branched off from there. So there's a reason that there is a lot of the traditions and a lot of the teachings and things like that that are sort of more pure, I think, than the other religions. But a lot of the customs and things that you have too are also, there's a reason behind it as well. It's not just offering, thanks to God.
Very,
It's
exactly. It's very, everything's so symbolic in Judaism. They
right.
have double meanings, triple meanings, and very, very spiritual. I didn't realize how spiritual Judaism was until I started getting back into it. And so when I was in grad school, I officially converted to Judaism when I was 26, 27, something like that, because my mother wasn't Jewish. And so you
Okay.
can only be Jewish if your mother's Jewish.
Right.
And like, so I wasn't raised in a Jewish household. I was raised in a secular household. So I took what they call an intro to conversion or intro to Judaism class, which
Uh-huh.
is their conversion class. And I took it really just to learn more about Judaism. And at the end of the class, I said, I actually want to go through it. I want to officially convert. I want to make sure that I'm officially, finally Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was towards the end of grad school. And I was doing it kind of ish for a few years there, but each year I kind of became less and less devoted and devout and all of that. But then again, when COVID happened, I started going through my reading list, started connecting again with my spirituality, and saw that it spirituality is so complex and so deep. There's so much there, and it goes beyond Judaism because I believe that all the major religions, as long as they come from a piece of love and non-judgment, they're all valid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one religion is true. And the whole concept of like, if you don't believe my religion, you're going to be tortured eternally, to me is kind of a sick concept, to be honest. But anyways, I'm getting off course there. So I started getting more and more religious around COVID because I found that the religion was a way to connect to my spirituality. I
Mm-hmm.
don't look at commandments as being things I must do. I look at commandments as spiritual tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so one question I get a lot, especially from Orthodox Jews that come to Spirit Fests on Sundays, of course, they ask me, well, what do you do about Saturday? Who's running your booth on Saturday because you can't be here, Shabbat? And I go, no, I run it. I work on Shabbat. And they look at me like I'm committing the most grievous sin, and all of
Mm-hmm.
this. And they're curious as to how I'm getting away with it or how I justify working on Shabbat. And I tell them there's a two-prong approach here. The one is that again, I don't look at commandments as being things I have to do. I look at them as opportunities to connect to my spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And spending Shabbat with Spirit Fest is the best way I could connect to my spirituality. I'm connecting with you and all of our friends and family there, and plus all the
Mm-hmm.
people are coming to see us and connecting with their spirituality. I, in fact,
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm doing my mission by being there. And the other thing is, I tell them I do Shabbat on a different day.
Mm-hmm.
I just sub it out. And some are okay, okay, you can do that, I guess. And others are like, I'm not so
Mm-hmm.
sure about that. But it just goes to show you that some people are just very, very rigid in their mindset when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to religion. And I think people just need to be more open-minded and accepting of people's religious backgrounds
Mm-hmm.
and just come from a place of love.
Agreed. Agreed. That to me is what religion is. To me, it's being
Yeah.
the best person that you can be and being, like just like the masters that they,
Yeah.
the examples that they gave us and being like that. And I sometimes now I'm getting off track, but I think about any of the masters that we know are at least several thousand years old. And
Mhm.
I feel like that they had a different, they didn't have to go to work. I
Right.
know that,
Yeah.
they all had to work and they had different concerns and things like that. But it seems to me that it would be easier to sort of devote yourself to a life of spirituality if you did not have some of the 3D things that we have. But like you said, this is when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. And
Exactly.
yeah.
The problem with modern age is that we're just so distracted. And if it weren't for these distractions, I think we would have a deeper sense of our spirituality. And
Mhm.
so that's a pitfall. I get, and maybe not even a pitfall. I call it a challenge. I don't like to use those negative words. So I look at it as a challenge, and it's one I struggle with. I know most people struggle with it. They create these things to be addictive. They create the algorithms,
Mhm.
and before you know it, I just spent 2 hours looking at cop videos, watching them pull people over for speeding. I mean, really,
Yes.
is that a way to spend 2 hours of your time? It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And so that is, I think, one of our biggest challenge as people who are trying to help people reach their spirituality, reach their mystical selves, is how
Mhm.
do we overcome that addiction? How do we treat it?
That is could be a whole nother show as
It
well,
really
is
could
how
be.
social media is using you.
Yeah.
Um, that I just heard a statistic from I want to say it's somebody that's trained in, it's going to be one of the alphabet letter government things, but about how much they manipulate it. So if you get a video in your stream of a puppy being rescued from a flood,
Hmm.
or, something else along that line, the next thing that you see is going to be an ad. So you
Right.
get all these different reels that people have uploaded that may or may not even be real because the AI is looking really, convincing these days. But
Yeah.
that's how sophisticated it is to get your attention and to keep you online,
Yeah.
and then to feed you false information, or their a
Hmm.
slanted perspective of news, or other people's paid ads that are trying to get you to buy their stuff, or think differently, or think more what they want you to think, even if it isn't right or true. So
Definitely.
it's very frustrating to me that people get their news from social media instead
Yeah.
of, you know, um, what would you call it? The mainstream news outlets.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm constantly going back and forth between Facebook and Google, Googling the story to see if it's true what I
mhm.
just read, because some of these stories are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, every one I've Googled is true, at least according to the Google searches I do. Uh, but wow, yeah,
I like
such
to
a,
go to international newspapers
yeah,
about some things because they're going to be a little bit more non-biased.
yeah,
And then check, just different sites that we've got in America right now. So, okay, so back to science and soul, science and spirit.
yeah.
To me, I like I have great faith, but I like getting validation from science and
Me
proving,
too.
how some of this works. And I've always said that every true miracle has a scientific explanation about how it happened, or when it happened, or why it happened.
Yeah.
So that still, it makes it no less a miracle that everything fell into place at that time and that something occurred. But to me, the science is extremely important, to be able to show those different types of things. So when did you start to weave the two?
With COVID, with this book, this really is like my Bible for
Hmm.
everything woo-woo, so to speak. And I got it because I wanted to, like you said, I needed the science. Without the science, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I started reading through this book, and it's amazing, especially when it comes to energy healing. Because as an energy healer, I didn't believe in it at first. I thought this is
Hmm.
crazy. You know, people can't heal people just by hovering their hands over them. And then I read his chapter on Reiki plus several other chapters in the book that tie into it, like consciousness, perception, distance healing, all of that stuff. And that's really what drew me in, that this book is just filled with studies. And so when it comes to science and this woo-woo stuff, I think we could have several shows about different things. We just talk about consciousness, we just talk about energy healing, we just talk about this or that. But I
Hmm.
think if we kind of focus on the energy healing, we can kind of get a nice story here. And so the very first thing I think we need to do is check our vocabulary.
Hmm.
All right. And so the first thing I had to do is change my mindset about what healing is. All right.
Hmm.
Most of us have the mindset of a healer being a doctor in a lab coat giving you drugs or going in for surgery or something like that. And yes, that is a part of healing, but there's other aspects of healing as well. There's spiritual healing, there's emotional healing, there's mental healing.
Hmm.
And energy healing touches all of those to a certain degree, but doesn't replace any single one either. And so it is definitely a complementary technique as well. And
Right.
so that's the first thing I do is just change my mindset about what healing actually is. And what helped me with that too is to realize that um, doctors and drugs don't do the healing. They
Hmm.
facilitate the healing, but our
Hmm.
bodies heal themselves.
Hmm.
And that is actually how energy healing works as well. It just facilitates the healing process within us. And we can
That
talk a lot more about
is
that here in a minute.
That's a beautiful place for us to take a
Yep.
break. So before we go to break, spiritfestusa.com is our website. And we've got a show next weekend in a couple days in Punta Gorda. Biggest show of the year. And then the next one in Virginia Beach, and Dr. Doran will be with us at both. So check that out, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Hello, friends. My name is David Trotter. I'm the founder and publisher of Awakened Magazine, and we are deeply honored to collaborate with Mary Ellen Popyk, the Sanctuary Network, and Spirit Fest Expos. At Awakened Magazine, we are dedicated to amplifying the voices of conscious leaders, healers, and coaches as we all help awaken our world to love. We do that through our digital magazine. We release several interviews and numerous articles every single week at awakenedmagazine.com. We have a print magazine that comes out several times a year. We have a co-authored book series called Awakened Hearts that we've had multiple bestsellers and incredible authors joining us. And of course, we have our own expo right here in Southern California every year. Hey, if you haven't already checked it out, I encourage you to watch the interview that I did with Mary Ellen Popyk. You can find it at awakenedmagazine.com. Just search Mary Ellen. It'll pop right up. You will love getting to know her and her backstory. And if you haven't already, get a free subscription to Awakened Magazine. You can find that at awakenedmagazine.com.
Florida has a great new option for healthy living. Our natural health expos were a hit last year, so 2026 brings more events around Florida. This special event offers health and wellness opportunities for people and pets. High quality experts in well-being, healing, anti-aging, and natural living. Plus, you'll find speakers, demonstrations, and much more. All details, lists of locations, and discounted admission can be found at naturalwellnessexpo.com. Join us for Spirit Fest, coming soon to a city near you. Spirit Fest is a metaphysical, holistic, and crystal expo featuring an amazing array of vendors, speakers, authors, artists, crystals, healers, psychic readers, and more. Spirit Fest is your chance to explore and connect with others of like mind. Get all details, including our upcoming locations up and down the East Coast, also discounted admission, and more at spiritfestusa.com. Our next event is January 10th and 11th with special guests and special presentations, including psychic explorer, medium Mark Anthony, and also historical researcher, explorer, and author Jim Vieira. More details are coming to our website soon, and we look forward to seeing you at Spirit Fest in 2026. Welcome back to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit, everyone. We've got a live show tonight. So if you are listening and you would like to call in or comment on our stream on Facebook or through the Transformation Network's site, feel free. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have any questions, let us know. But tonight we are discussing science and soul with spiritual advisor, energy healer, and founder of the Modern Mystic Project, Dr. Doron Shalev. So we were talking about how the science of energy healing and how, with all that you've learned about science as a whole has, given you the access to be able to look at literally how it's working. So we talked about after COVID, and then, were you skeptical of energy healing at first?
Completely skeptical. I did not believe in it. I thought it was woo-woo. And but it was the chapter I was most interested about in that book. It was the thing that really I wanted to know more about. Like, if this is real, you've really got to prove it to me because I am the biggest skeptic there is about it.
Mm-hmm.
And while there is just one chapter on Reiki in that book, I always refer back to it because that's where I started, and then I went to other books after that. But while there's only one chapter in that book specifically on Reiki, which is the most probably well-known form of energy healing, all the other chapters support and tie into that single chapter. And so you really got to read almost the entire book to get the full story.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll do my best kind of to summarize the major points here to really the things that really talked to me and spoke to me as to why energy healing works and the science behind it. And he starts off the chapter one, mind over matter and the placebo effect. He was working on drugs for cardiovascular system and stuff like that. And when they were developing drugs, the other people in the lab would talk about the placebo effect and how they just brush it off. It's not real, it's fake. People think they're being healed and blah, blah, blah. And David was like, well, if it's 35, 40% of people taking this placebo think they're getting healed, something has to be healing them. Something
Mm-hmm.
really has to be happening there. And it boils down to that our mind, our brain is a very powerful tool. We can control what happens in our body. And so if we took a few minutes here and I had you close your eyes and I walk you through a visualization, whether it be you sitting at work, or perhaps we're going to eat a piece of chocolate cake, or perhaps we might have something a little more like an adult situation happening, your body is going to physically respond very differently to each one of those situations, from
Mm-hmm.
stress and anxiety to hunger and salivation to things
Mm-hmm.
stirring up in you, and they're all very different things. And that's all happening in our mind. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
our mind is controlling our biology there.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that in mind, our mind can heal our body if we train it and focus our brains in the right way. And so the first thing you have to do is learn to live from a place of love and kindness and kind of in these higher emotions and try to leave the stress, the anxiety, the hate, the judgment, all that behind. And that ties into other physical effects like heart rate variance, the strength of your heart's magnetic field, and things like that that can actually impact the people that you're working with in terms of energy healing. Uh,
We know that's true, but how do
yeah.
you explain that to someone who's not familiar with that concept at all?
I think you can't explain it. I think that, well, you can't explain it, but they have to be open to that explanation to be able to listen to you. And that's why I do put my credentials forward. I am a PhD trained chemist. I'm a scientist. I have looked at this data from a scientific perspective. And so
Hmm.
I'm not just trying to sell you some big story. And I know there are the skeptics out there, and I know what they say, and I can address that skepticism, but at the end, either are going to believe me or not.
Right.
And so we can either go through the long process of doing that, or you can demonstrate. Let
Hmm.
me show you. Let me do a healing on you. Where does it hurt?
Hmm.
What issue is happening? And then they might be more open-minded to it. But there's no easy way to do it. Although I think it is getting easier. So I think maybe if I just found a way. Go back to meditation. All right. Look back at the 50s and 60s. The view of meditation is that's for the hippies. That is
Hmm.
woo beyond belief, right?
Hmm.
And then in the 80s and 90s, something started happening. It started entering the mainstream. Now the doctors and the scientists were still saying, there's nothing to it. It's not doing anything. But
Hmm.
now the average Joe on the street is starting to do it and get into it.
Yeah.
Then come 2000, everything after 2000, you have the scientific studies. You have the doctors recommending that you meditate to reduce your stress and anxiety. You see
Hmm.
people actually healing from meditating. And
Hmm.
so I think meditation is a perfect example on how we have this knee-jerk skepticism
Hmm.
that we need to overcome. And so energy healing right now, I think we're probably like in the 70s coming into the 80s with that. We're just moving from the really hippie woo-woo aspect into it now to where it's starting just now to enter the mainstream. We're now getting scientific studies that are supporting the real effects of Reiki and these other energy healing modalities. And so perhaps starting with that analogy may
Hmm.
open them.
That's very good. That's very good. So Reiki is an accredited continuing education course for nurses.
Now
So,
it is,
yeah,
yes.
so it is
Yeah,
now becoming in the mainstream, and they would not be letting nurses get their CEUs by taking
yeah,
Reiki courses if there wasn't some evidence that it was
definitely.
working.
Yep, it's in hospitals worldwide, but
Hmm.
that doesn't mean it's not controversial and that
Yeah.
there's not people that are fighting against it and doctors that are still scoffing it. And the people, the doctors that do see it working, they're saying, "Oh, it's just like the placebo effect. It's all in their head." But
Mm,
that's healing them. It's healing them. I mean, does it
right.
matter if it's in their head or not? All that
Right.
matters is that healing is occurring.
Right. And we were just talking during the break about I had a family member that came and we were shocked because he kind of came to Spirit Fest because it was my show and he wanted to see it. And then next thing we know, I went over to you and told you that he was having a health problem and asked him if he would be willing to sit with you. And to my surprise, he said yes. And he really, and I remember his wife came up and said, "Where's he going?" Really?
Right?
But that was awesome. So just being open, he didn't have to
Yeah.
believe it. Because isn't that how energy healing works? Is that it just goes where it needs to go? You
Yep.
don't have to do anything.
I think that's a little
The
controversial.
person, the person that's getting it, you think
Correct.
that they,
Yeah, the person getting it doesn't have to do anything.
right.
But yeah, but from the healer perspective, some healers really think they just have to sit there and put the energy in and it's just going to do their thing. And they can kind of go off in dreamland as they're doing it. But you do have to be very focused on what you're doing as the healer. And so the healer definitely has to know what they're doing. But yeah, the person sitting there, no, they just need to know how to sit back and relax for a few minutes, which
Right.
actually is hard for some people.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, skeptics are my favorite to bring into my chair. In fact, my brother was a skeptic. And so the very first Spirit Fest I went to, the first couple, my brother came with me to help out with sales as I was doing the healing sessions. And I keep my eyes closed for most of it so I can really focus on the subtle energies. And the clients usually have their eyes closed too. And my brother would be here like, I'd be watching him do his healings and he gets to a certain part and he make like this weird grimace on his face and the person would be doing it at the same exact time, the same exact face. And so we're like mirroring each other. And then
Wow.
about a year after I was doing this, I'm in the living room one day. My brother pulls up the stool I used to work on clients on. And he sat down. He's like, all right, do it. He's like, I've had an issue for the past few days. Do it. He didn't give me any other information. I'm like, oh, great. And so first I went to his energy, and his energy he has a very high, what I call energy background. So his entire body needed healing. And so to
Hmm.
find this new thing, I thought, there's no way in heck I'm going to be able to find this. But finally, I went and I started hovering right over this part of his chest. I'm kind of like, there's something there. I'm putting the energy into that. And that's exactly where he's having an issue. He's having some sort of pulled muscle or pain issue there. And I couldn't tell he was walking normally, acting normally, no pain, no visible pain, no vocalizations, nothing there. But that's exactly where it was. And I put the healing into it and it went away. And he was shocked by it.
Uh-huh.
And I used to tell people too is I can't heal myself. I can heal other people, but I can't do myself. And what I
Mm.
realized is I can't heal myself if I put my hands over my physical body like this. I have to do a distance healing on myself. That's the only way it
Hmm.
worked for me. And
Hmm.
so about a year or two ago, my hands were getting so bad where I couldn't even open like a bottle of tea or soda or anything without extreme pain. And sometimes I'd have to do it flat because I couldn't bend my fingers at all. So really bad arthritis coming in or carpal tunnel or something like that.
Hmm.
And so I said, all right, I'm a healer. I've got to take care of this. If this stuff is real, because again, I'm the biggest skeptic here, this is the chance to prove it to me. And so it took, long story short, it took me 3 sessions. But now I can move my hands, and sometimes I still go like, "Hey, people, look my hands! Oh, it's so amazing!" Because
Hmm.
that's how bad they were. I could not do that. It hurt so much, and it just took 3 sessions. And now they might act up just a tiny bit every now and again, but for the most part, not an issue. Whereas that issue was going on was well over a year at that point when I finally decided to do the session.
So what's
Just
the
getting away
science
from it.
behind that, that you need to do a distance healing on yourself rather than just do it immediate?
I think that was just a subconscious block I have
Oh,
personally.
okay.
But studies do show that distance has no effect on energy healing. You be there in person, you do it via distance, it doesn't matter. Consciousness has no limits. There's no separation when it comes down to consciousness. And
Right.
there's a lot of studies that show this. So for example, it's been shown that people can even affect random number generators
Hmm.
from a different state. Um, the Oh, this was a neat one. I'm sorry, I'm looking over here at some notes I have. Um, they were doing this one study on a computer where they hooked up the clients to stuff to monitor their nervous system, and then they were showing them random pictures on a computer every now and again that would flash up at random times and be a random picture. And so it'd be things from like a puppy to an accident to something that would kind of like give you a fright, a quick scare, different things like this. And they were monitoring the reaction. And what they found is that the instrument started recording the proper emotional response 3 to 5 seconds before the picture popped up on the computer
Hmm.
screen. And
Hmm.
again, these are popping up randomly as well. They weren't just popping up at a regular interval.
Hmm.
And so our consciousness is an EM field, it's electromagnetic field. There is no limit to it. And
Right.
so when it comes to healing, it doesn't matter if it's in person or distance. I think it's whatever is most comfortable for you and the client.
Hmm.
Most people do like in-person sessions, but I find my distance sessions are just as powerful, if not more powerful, because I can really focus better in a distance session than I can when I'm in person. Because when I'm in person, I'm worried about brushing them up against them. I'm worried about different sounds going on around me, their comfort level, and things like this. I don't necessarily have to worry about from a distance session.
Sorry, I have two cats fighting over here,
Oh,
and I'm trying to
that's
pretend
all
that they're
good.
not
That's all good.
actually about to really get into it.
Well, I have another
Um,
story there about that. So another story about that is that there was a mother and son, and they were very, very close. The mother was the caretaker of the son because the son I think had some developmental issues or something. So took him in for an eye exam. He needed glasses. He couldn't see, and the mother's sitting there in the room with him, and he's just rattling off all the letters, no problem. And the eye doctor's like, he has 20/20 vision, and the mother's like, no, he doesn't. And so the doctor's like, well, all right, leave. I'll run through the test again, but leave the room. She left the
mhm,
room, and he couldn't read the letters at all. And
mhm,
so they believe that the mother was somehow consciously or psychically sending him the letters. And so to
mhm.
verify this, they redid the test again later and had the mother in a completely different building on the other side of town when it was happening. And again, the kid could just rattle off those letters as his mom was looking at them. He wasn't
Wow.
looking at them, his mother was.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of studies out there that show that there are these psychic distance consciousness phenomena that occur, and energy healing is one way, uses that as well.
Well, that's a whole other topic that I don't think we were really planning to get
Right. Yeah,
into
we're
because I'm thinking of the telepathy tapes and what they're doing with nonverbal kids
yeah,
or people that have been blind since birth and
right. Yeah,
holding up a card with a word on it and they can see it.
yeah,
And that's what I think, similar to how you talked about over the different decades, about how we're more and more accepting of things.
yeah,
But I think that we're starting to learn that telepathy is going to be the language of the future. I think it's the language of the ETs,
yeah,
of people on other planets. And it requires us to think with, that non-analytical part of our brain
yeah,
or our heart. So that's a really important thing for us to start exposing people to helping them to understand. And by seeing the different things that are occurring with the telepathy tapes, with the work that they're doing, the studies that they're doing, and like the story that you just described, that we are limitless. We can do so much.
yeah.
And, we just need to get out of our own way, I guess, or just focus on those little things, being five
Definitely.
minutes late for the dentist, and
And we could again talk about that in so much detail about how it could be an evolutionary aspect from, the people that could kind of predict danger survived and evolved. And so it maybe been an evolutionary thing. Another thing too is people will say, oh, telepathy is not true or psychic phenomena are not true because, most people can't do it. And well, can most people run a 4-minute mile? No. But are we flabbergasted when someone does it?
Mhm,
No. But, when someone is really psychic, we think well, that's just a con man. But,
mhm,
no, they're just at the far end of the spectrum. They're just really good, really tuned in.
mhm,
And that's another problem with scientific studies relating to any of this energy healing, any of these type of psychic phenomena, is that you are kind of analyzing the entire population in these studies.
mhm,
And some people are going to have almost no ability, some people are going to have very strong ability. And
mhm.
then those that have the strong ability, they have to fight the people thinking that they're trying to con them or something like that. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of barriers we have to get over to accept these. And these studies, and I'm not talking about these are random studies. These are studies that the statistics on them would blow your mind away. All right, and so the Higgs boson, everyone, well, hopefully most people remember when that was discovered about
Mhm,
10, 15 years ago. I think it was 2012. So in order to, scientists had thought it was there. They had signals where they thought it was it, but did not reach the golden threshold to accept the data as proof that it existed. To get there, they needed a 5 sigma value. It's a stats value. We won't get into stats here, but just it's a stats thing. What that means is that chance of that being fake is 1 in 3.5 million chance or 99.99994% chance that it's a true effect.
Hmm.
Most of these studies that I've been talking about today and other ones that I we won't have time to mention exceed the Six Sigma threshold
Wow.
statistically,
Hmm.
meaning if they have 1 in a billion chance of being a fluke.
Hmm.
So we're talking a 0.0000001% chance that it's fake and 99.99999% chance that it's true. And
Hmm.
so it's hard to get over this. Kind of sidelining here, I've had the guts to tell two people at work what I do because
Hmm.
it's scary. I'm a scientist. I work with academics. One was a biologist, the other one was a psychologist. The
Wow.
psychologist looked at me like I was nuts. She's like, well, some people are more gullible than others. There's been studies on this gullibility, and not that
Hmm.
gullibility is a bad thing. I'm not saying that, da 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 da. But she started rattling off all the psychological stuff, and I'm like, but have you even read any of these studies? No,
Hmm.
she hasn't. She doesn't even know what I'm referencing. She's automatically dismissing me as being insane and crazy.
Hmm.
Then I'm having lunch with the biologist, and I'm like, oh boy. And I was very scared, nervous to do this, but the conversation just kind of led that way, and I had to eventually come out.
Hmm.
And she's like, oh, my mother, my grandmother, my sister, they're all amazing healers back in she's from South America, back, my South American hometown. She's like, I don't have the gift myself, but I've seen it. I've lived with it. I grew with it. I totally believe it.
Hmm.
And that I felt such relief when she said that.
Hmm.
And so, people have their own belief systems that are limiting beliefs, and even scientists have this. In fact, I tell people when I work with these college students who are majoring in science, they mock non-scientific disciplines, especially religion and spirituality and things, because they have transformed science and replaced their religion with science. So science has become their
Hmm.
religion. So they
Hmm.
don't question it.
Hmm.
To them, it is dogma. Their chemistry textbook is the Bible. And so one of the things I have to try to do is try to get them out of that mindset to question the science that they're learning, not to accept things without the evidence, the statistics, all of that to prove it. And
Hmm.
so again, I'm the biggest skeptic out there when it comes to this stuff. I'm a scientist. You have to prove it to me. And to me, it's there. Now just need to start changing other people's minds. And that's
Well,
the
look
hard
at
part.
people like Galileo. I mean,
Yeah. Good
how
point.
ahead of his time he was, and it just took people being brave to
Yeah.
just. And again, that's why we do Spirit Fest.
Yeah.
Is, because everybody is coming from a different place, a different, some are totally new to spirituality, some, are kind of, have been in it for a little bit while, but may have had bad experiences, or they may have had, religion that they're kind of trying to weave religion into the woo, as you
Yeah.
say. And then there's others that have been studying the path for 20 years. But similarly, how we all explain things are different. So,
Hmm.
what you're doing might not be perfect for everyone, but then there's the people they're going to find you that are just so ready for what you're offering. And that's just a good way to be able to expose everybody to all of the different types of energy healing or, sound healing. Sound healing, I feel like, is about 30 years ahead of its time. I
Definitely.
think that that's another thing that we're going to be able to go to the doctor because they're doing things like percussive therapy now with like
Yeah.
orthopedics. So, they're starting to get into that a little bit. What about chakras? Do they acknowledge the chakras in Reiki at all?
They do, but I think it's more optional. You can incorporate them if you wish.
Hmm.
My Reiki training did incorporate the chakra system in a kind of cursory thing, like it's here, but we're not really going to talk about it. Let the
Hmm.
Reiki energy go where it needs to go. So they teach you
Hmm.
different hand positions. They, of course, teach you the Reiki symbols. And they kind of just show you how to kind of go over the entire body and do a general over body scan. I started doing chakras because when I started getting into all this, it was with the crystals. And so crystal healing ties very closely into chakras. And so
Hmm.
by the time I got to Reiki, I'd already been exposed to the chakra system.
Hmm.
And I find that's how I can intuitively feel where the issue is. I analyze the chakras, and if I'm getting a weak pull from my hands, it's like an emotional, spiritual imbalance, and I'll just let the energy go until I don't feel it anymore.
Hmm.
If it's a very strong pull from my hands, that's my indication that's something physical. And so if it's in the heart chakra area, that means it's in the heart area. I'll analyze the heart, the lungs, maybe the shoulders, although it's usually more the throat chakra, but I'll start scanning to reach and find out exactly where it is. And that's where I start
Hmm.
putting the energy. And I would say I have probably about an 80 to 90% hit rate. And that's still flabbergasting when I still walk out of these sessions like, I don't know how I got those. I'm just telling them what I'm feeling and they're acknowledging that it's true.
Hmm.
So according to them, I've been having a high hit rate, but again, I don't know what I'm doing, but
Well, you're
apparently I'm
collecting
doing something.
data just like you do in the lab. So how
Yeah.
can you dispute it? You
Yep.
know, that's
There you
that type of feedback is exactly what you need to know that it's effective.
exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, that's amazing. So, um, tying in again the science that you've studied with the religion, what is some of the like, is there any like just mind-blowing things that you've been able to sort of prove with science? I'm thinking of maybe biblical things or things like that.
I definitely use a lot of mystical practices and spiritual practices in my healing because I do believe that the healing, you can explain energy healing from kind of like the scientific perspective for sure, but I do believe there's also a supernatural element to it. Like I said, I think some people, the more connected you are to those energies, I think the better a conduit you can be for those healing energies. But not really answering your question, but kind of in a way, is one thing I keep coming back to this book, but in this book, he talks about a consciousness equation and how and he compares it to gravity. And so the equation for gravity is you have two masses of two objects and you divide it by the distance squared, and that gives you the gravitational pull. And you have to multiply that by some sort of gravitational constant, which takes this very large number and makes it a very small number, which gravity is a small effect. And you can do that to consciousness too, where you have the consciousness of person A and B interacting together. You
Hmm.
divide that by their emotional connection, their emotional distance. And
Hmm.
the stronger their consciousnesses are, the more elevated their conscious is, plus the more emotionally connected they are to each other, the
Hmm.
more that they can interact their two consciousnesses, the more you can read each other psychically, the
Hmm.
more you can accept or receive energy healing. But that also needs to be multiplied by a consciousness factor. And so that takes this huge, potentially huge energy and makes it a very subtle effect. And to me, this is important because one of the things that really bothered me about this woo-woo stuff was manifestation.
Hmm.
Because everyone's here telling me, oh, you can manifest whatever you want. It just magically appears. You manifest $1 billion, there it is. Boom. And I'm like, this just doesn't mesh with reality.
Hmm.
And if you relate it back to that equation, what we see is that consciousness effects are very, very subtle and they need to be that way. And so this includes energy healing.
Hmm.
Because imagine if I'm sitting here thinking of an elephant, all of a sudden an elephant appears in my bedroom, that's going to be a bad thing. All right. And
Right.
so we need to have this kind of consciousness constant to keep our manifestation
Hmm.
under control here. And so, I lost my train of thought with that. How where the point I was trying to drive home with that. Um,
But
but
that is a really good point that we don't want to manifest things too fast, but really we do. We
yeah,
just need to tailor what our thoughts are.
yeah, and that's what it was.
Um,
I remember. So manifestation, at least from a Kabbalistic perspective, is more about changing your soul, changing who you
mhm.
are, and so that you can create the change that you want rather than magically manifesting it.
Right, right. Okay, we find us at another point where we need to take a break. So your website, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more, the modernmysticproject.com.
Yeah.
And to find us, spiritfestusa.com. We'll be in Punta Gorda next weekend, Virginia Beach the weekend after that. But the full list of all of our shows is right on the homepage of our website. And then you can see what's coming up, and there's a lot coming up. So stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Hello, friends. My name is David Trotter. I'm the founder and publisher of Awakened Magazine, and we are deeply honored to collaborate with Mary Ellen Popyk, the Sanctuary Network, and Spirit Fest Expos. At Awakened Magazine, we are dedicated to amplifying the voices of conscious leaders, healers, and coaches as we all help awaken our world to love. We do that through our digital magazine. We release several interviews and numerous articles every single week at awakenedmagazine.com. We have a print magazine that comes out several times a year. We have a co-authored book series called Awakened Hearts that we've had multiple bestsellers and incredible authors joining us. And of course, we have our own expo right here in Southern California every year. Hey, if you haven't already checked it out, I encourage you to watch the interview that I did with Mary Ellen Popyk. You can find it at awakenedmagazine.com. Just search Mary Ellen. It'll pop right up. You will love getting to know her and her backstory. And if you haven't already, get a free subscription to Awakened Magazine. You can find that at awakenedmagazine.com.
Florida has a great new option for healthy living. Our natural health expos were a hit last year, so 2026 brings more events around Florida. This special event offers health and wellness opportunities for people and pets. High quality experts in well-being, healing, anti-aging, and natural living. Plus, you'll find speakers, demonstrations, and much more. All details, list of locations, and discounted admission can be found at naturalwellnessexpo.com. Join us for Spirit Fest, coming soon to a city near you. Spirit Fest is a metaphysical, holistic, and crystal expo featuring an amazing array of vendors, speakers, authors, artists, crystals, healers, psychic readers, and more. Spirit Fest is your chance to explore and connect with others of like mind. Get all details, including our upcoming locations up and down the East Coast, also discounted admission, and more at spiritfestusa.com. Our next event is January 10th and 11th with special guests and special presentations, including psychic explorer, medium Mark Anthony, and also historical researcher, explorer, and author Jim Vieira. More details are coming to our website soon, and we look forward to seeing you at Spirit Fest in 2026. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sanctuary for Mind, Body, and Spirit. We have got a really good conversation going here with spiritual advisor, energy healer, and founder of the Modern Mystic Project, Dr. Doron Shalev. And we're discussing science of the soul and how we can weave religion with science. For some reason, a lot of people feel like the woo is against their religion to some degree, but I think it bolsters it in many, many times. What are your thoughts on that, particularly with Judaism?
Definitely, and it's something I see a lot from people because Judaism, you talk to very, very observant Jews, and they'll say, "Oh, mediums against the Torah, divination against the Torah," even though there are aspects of divination and mediumship within the Torah, and examples of it. King Solomon even, saw a medium. So I think, again, it comes from a place of fear. Anytime you see people start judging things, it comes from a place of fear. So I think these people, when they see Spirit Fest, they see the psychics, they see the mediums, they're afraid of hell. That's what it boils down. And again, that's why I hate this concept of hell, because it's really a way of controlling people. And again, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was thinking of something else and I started going. But anyway, so when it comes to that, I think
Control.
What you do is
It's
it's
that's
control.
what I believe that in the past, that's what religions were after, was control
Yeah.
of the people, and that was the best way to do it, was through fear.
And so to
Um,
me, religion is really, all religions are tools,
right,
and so it's the spirituality that's the map.
right.
And finally, destination is the mysticism, the direct experience with God. And so anything that facilitates that direct experience with the divine,
hmm
to me, can't be bad. And so if
hmm
that's seeing a psychic or seeing a medium, a psychic, you're getting advice, you're getting spiritual advice. The
Right.
medium, you're getting healing. healing that you need. So
Yeah.
where it comes bad is when you abuse those things, just like with anything else. And
Hmm.
so if you can't make a decision without seeing your psychic, that's bad.
Yes.
If you have to go to your medium every week because you can't get over the death of your grandfather,
Hmm.
that's when it's bad. And
Hmm.
so but trying to convince some people of that is you're just not
Yeah.
going to. But I think there's enough people out there that are kind of on the fence where if you approach it from that perspective, they
Hmm.
might say, "Oh, okay, I see where you're coming from. Okay, I guess I can go see that medium and get a message from Grandpa because I need it. I need that closure." Or, you know what, this energy healing, I'm going to try it because I tried everything else and nothing
Hmm.
else is working. And that's
Having
okay.
been raised Catholic, people like Joan of Arc, she got visions and she got,
Yeah,
downloads and things like
exactly.
that. And, she's a saint today. But that's the way that I look at it. And then, prophecy. There
Mhm.
was trusted people that gave the kings and, the people in the community information. And I don't think that it's against God or that again, just the way that you're using it.
Definitely.
Sometimes when you go see a psychic, you're getting confirmation
Right.
that
Yeah.
there might be just a piece of information that's so specific that it validates what you've already been thinking or you may know. Or, they can really read what's going on around you at the time that we may not be able to tap into because we're so close to it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good things that they could do, but a good medium is hard to find. Somebody that can actually communicate with the other side. And yeah, that's just hope. It just gives people, proof of life after death. What, isn't great about that?
Right.
Knowing that we live forever and our loved ones are really never far from us.
Definitely.
Um,
And you said something there, you used the word download with Joan of Arc, and that's actually a very important, another thing I think can help these people is we are all saying the same things, but we use different language.
mhm,
And so, the Christian may say there and say, I'm praying and trying to get this, whereas the spiritualist person here is saying, I'm manifesting or I'm casting a spell or I'm doing
mhm,
magic. But it's the
mhm.
same thing. They're doing it, they're praying, they're trying to manifest something essentially.
Yeah.
And so that ties into people like we were just talking about, people that think maybe this stuff is evil, but also ties into the scientists.
Mhm,
Just realize we're all saying the same thing, just using different language. So if we can
mhm.
learn each other's languages and
Right.
translate those, we'd realize we're all saying the same thing.
Yep.
And so
That's,
it's a
yeah.
communication barrier.
Yeah. That's what, why Jesus spoke in parables is because it was easier to tell the story, to
Yeah.
tell a story than to use specific examples because it was things that everyone could relate to.
Yep.
And same thing when we're at Spirit Fest, when we do opening circle, we get all the vendors together. And one of the things I always ask for is to be able to know to say the perfect thing to the perfect person at the perfect time
Mhm.
because that one little thing that you might say might just ignite a spark or it might answer a question or make them feel more comfortable that they can then go into learning more information or trying something new or things like that. And again, we're not trying to sell them anything or tell them a certain way to think or anything like that. Everybody's connection to spirit is personal and there's so many paths to God, I think.
Definitely.
But some people, even the name God is um for them it stirs
It's
up
triggering.
sorry.
It can be triggering.
It does. That's exactly it. It triggers
Yeah.
old religious,
Yeah.
wounds that they may have and things like that. And um I and
Also,
that it's
it kind of,
sad to me, I
yeah, and
think.
it brings up this character of an old man in a cloud in the sky, and that's not who God is.
Right. Right.
In Judaism, we say God is.
Yeah.
Don't finish that. That's the sense. God is. He
Hmm.
said in the Bible, "I am."
Yes.
He's existence. It
Right.
exists. They, who, you can't really use a pronoun with God, right? And so this concept we have of God, you're right. It's just one way to think of God because our minds can't really grasp what God even
Right.
is. So I like
Right.
to use the divine a lot, to kind of shy away from that.
Hmm.
I know other people use source, which I like as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
or observing Jews,
And
we say Hashem, the name.
I think are God. I think God is in us.
Yes.
Just like we have DNA from our different relatives and things, that more than we know or more than we realize is in us. And that's why the more that we focus on what we don't like or revenge or, judgment and things like that, the more that that does a disservice to that divine that's in us.
It does.
We don't need any of that. We've just became conditioned to that as kids, thinking that that was a way to survive,
Yeah,
and so a lot of what we're learning is actually unlearning things that we knew from the
definitely.
past so that we can open ourselves up to a lot of those, other things as well. So so we talked a little bit about Jewish mysticism, but I know that like when people get a healing session from you, you've got a lot of the different scripture or things. I'm not exactly sure what it is because it's written in a language I don't understand. But how
Spiritual
does that,
tools.
what's that? Yes.
Spiritual
But
tools.
how does that tie in with the work that you're doing today?
So, I think Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, the
Hmm.
mystical tradition of Judaism, speaks to a universal truth. For one thing, is it explains the Big Bang. It says that there's a divine spark in all of us, and all of creation has a bit of that divine spark. And our mission is to repair those sparks, repair the world, to transform the negative into the positive, to become
Hmm.
part of creation itself.
Hmm.
And so these are our purposes. And I think those things kind of speak to a universal truth that we all kind of fundamentally believe. And in fact, Kabbalah is so universally truthful that, or considered universal truth, that, the Christians adopted it. They changed the K to a C. And then the mystery school said, "Hey, this stuff makes sense to us too. If it goes with what we believe," and so they changed the K to a Q. And
Mm.
so all these other religious traditions have seen that Jewish mysticism knows it's spot on there. And so how that ties into today, I think Kabbalah is a way, or just mysticism in general, is something the world desperately needs. We
Hmm.
need to come back to this direct experience with the divine and get away from the distractions of the modern world, to get away from the ego and the selfishness and the distractions and all of that. And so I believe Kabbalah, being so universally truthful, can does relate to us today. And so we have the tree of life, which is essentially a map of consciousness, a
Hmm.
map of the human soul. And you can manifest and change things, even do psychological analysis of yourself using the tree of life. And then we have the concept of reincarnation is also in Kabbalah, which a lot of people don't realize that,
No, I
there are a
didn't
lot of
either.
Jews that believe in reincarnation. Not all Jews, but a lot of Jews do. And I think that gives us comfort in that we can have a second chance or even a third chance with mistakes
Hmm.
we make in this life, which I think
Hmm.
a lot of people do feel like they made mistakes in this life, especially with the internet that can capture it and replay it, and the entire world can know about your mistakes. Whereas when we were kids, you
Right.
know, we get away with a lot more back then. And even, a lot of people today talk about angels and angels in their life, and they don't realize that all that comes from Judaism and Kabbalah. In fact, we have probably the most complex archangel hierarchy that exists. You'd be flabbergasted with how complex angels are in the Jewish faith and Kabbalah.
Hmm.
And then there's also ways where we can use Jewish, I don't want to call it magic, but it kind of is magic through Kabbalah. And we can take this manifestation that seems to be magical and transform it more into a mindfulness. Hey, um, when you're using this name of God to try to manifest something, this is supposed to be helping you become more courageous or help you get better at public speaking. And so focus on that as you're doing that. And again,
Hmm.
if we go and look at the science, when you focus on goals and keep that goal front of your head, you're more likely to achieve that goal. And so
Hmm.
you can again look at this thing either as completely woo-woo, that you're actually manifesting this, that you're actually making spiritual energy alignments and changes and all that, or you can look at it from kind of more the non-woo-woo aspect. And so I think that it all just really translates well into the modern world and ties in well. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Modern Mystic Project, is I'm trying to create a place for people who are spiritual but not religious to meet
Hmm.
their mystical needs, to
Hmm.
get their rituals and their connection to the divine and all of that
Hmm.
in a way that's meaningful to them in today's day and age.
Hmm. That's beautiful. So the website, what's on there? What will people find when they go to your website?
Oh, there's a lot on there. So it's essentially a library of resources where you can find guided meditations, workbooks, presentations, webinars, all of that. They're pre-recorded all on there. There's a 3-week onboarding process that teaches you how essentially to be a modern mystic in the
Mm,
3-week onboarding process. So it's like a 3-week course where it's only about 5 minutes a day, nothing too intensive. And then each month I do a live chakra balancing and healing
mhm.
session. I do a live webinar that's also recorded and put into the library. And I do a live guided meditation that changes each month. That's also recorded and put in the library. We also
Nice.
meet on Sunday mornings just to do a contemplative meditation just for accountability. All right, so we
Hmm.
just meet on Zoom and we're quiet for 40 minutes to meditate. And so
Wow.
it's holding accountability plus resources and building a community through that.
That's really nice because even if you're not talking, you're connecting
Exactly.
with
And it's
others, and
like,
that is
well,
very
I don't want
powerful.
to meditate this morning, but it's there. I might as well
Right.
go do it, and hop on and do it.
Right. And they don't have to show their face if they don't want
Nope.
to. Okay.
I don't even show mine for that one. I don't. Uh,
Oh.
and for the guided one, I don't either. Because that one, but for the webinar and the chakra balancing, I show my face, my beautiful
Hmm. Hmm.
thing.
That's really, I feel that's really neat. But so I encourage people to come to Spirit Fest to be able to meet you in person, and then also you do the healings.
Yep.
How long typically is a session?
Uh, Usually I tell people it's going to be about 20 minutes. There's kind of like an onboarding process and there's a deboarding process. But at this upcoming Spirit Fest and moving forward, I'm actually going to dedicate about a 15-minute session and a 30-minute session. And there's a little bit of onboarding and
Mhm.
denouement at the end as well to each of those. So anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes is what you'll spend in my tent.
But you're doing something special in Punta Gorda where you're going to be the opening speaker at 10:30, and we've got an
Yep.
hour and a half that you're going to be discussing a little bit about the energy healing, but then you're actually going to be able to give healings to the people that
Exactly.
are there in
I'm
attendance.
very excited to do that. And so that's going to based on how many people are there.
Hmm.
If it's a lot of people wanting healings, I'll try to get to as many people as we can. I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is do a small group healing to start off with, and then we'll
Hmm.
do individual cases. But again, it's going to depend on the time. But yeah, so I'm going to start off just talking about what energy healing is, a little bit about my journey into it and how I tie Kabbalah and other traditions as well into it. Because I pull not just from Kabbalah and not just from Reiki, but I also pull from other energy healing modalities as well.
Mm.
And so I'm going to explain all of those, how I tie them all in, and how they can take this information I'm giving them home with them to work on themselves.
Hmm.
Because you don't need an energy healer to do some of this stuff. Yeah, it's
Right,
great, but some of this you can definitely do on your own.
right. Um, and that's the most important thing. You're not just waving a magic wand. You're giving them the tools that they need to
Yeah.
keep themselves healthy and in balance energetically.
Definitely. And that's another thing we'll talk about is we'll talk about what causes disease, what
Hmm.
causes all of this, and what type of spiritual things we can do to treat that as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really great information. So yeah. Just thinking of your evolution over the last 4 years too has really been amazing.
I
Um,
Yeah, I can't believe it myself. Like I said, my very first show was with you, um, and I've been doing it ever since. And if it weren't
mhm,
for you, I wouldn't be doing it still. And I did other shows that first year or two, but none of them were like Spirit Fest. I kept coming back to Spirit Fest because that's where the family is. That's where people
mm,
support each other there.
yeah.
It's just a great environment. And it's not just us. It's not just you. It's also the people that walk through that door. They're just
Oh
so
yeah.
hungry and so eager. It's great. The conversations we have, I learned so much from
Hmm.
the conversations I have with the attendees. So they're learning, I'm learning, we're all learning. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I always joke they don't come to see me. They come to see all the great vendors, and I hear really neat stories about how people ran into somebody that they haven't seen in 3 years. And
Yeah,
then, they ended up sitting down and then spending an hour talking before they've even gone into the show. And there's just a lot of really neat synchronicities that are from that as well, too. So, we don't have a lot. I think we've got about 10 minutes, but you saw Disclosure Day?
I did. I loved it. I cried. I am a
Yeah.
crier. I cry at everything. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so I can't watch one episode of Star Trek without crying.
Hmm.
But yeah, there were 2 points in that film where I was teary-eyed and I was crying. At the
Yeah.
end, of course, it was just a very, I thought, beautiful and powerful ending. And I don't remember
I loved it.
yeah, I did too. I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember the second time I cried, but I think it was when they were hurting. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, that was
I
that scene.
know.
Oh, I couldn't.
And
Oh,
that's actually real, unfortunately.
yeah,
I mean, it wasn't actual real footage, but
right,
it
right,
was
yeah,
what we have heard went on with
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
aliens that were captured after a crash. Would have been Roswell, I think, but there was others, and that's what a lot of people don't know either is that there were, that there
yeah,
was a lot of other crashes too. But they gave us some of the best technology that we have, like GPS,
yeah.
Teflon, LED lights. All of those are reverse engineered, or that they, gave us the technology, which is neat. So I'm just one of
Yeah.
those people that I cannot wait until there's open disclosure where we can have proof beyond proof that there are people from or beings from other planets that have been visiting us, and the government's known about it for a really long time.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm ready.
Me too.
But Disclosure Day is a movie. It is fiction, but it is
Yeah.
based on some true things. And then, that's the story. So I think people were looking for a little bit more of a, what it would be like or something like that. And
I
it's
thought it
food
was
for thought.
perfect. Yeah, I heard things going in where people are like, it's not that good and da da da. So I went in thinking I'm going to be disappointed. I wasn't. I completely loved it. And this, ties into, I remember being a kid and, just I was very open. I believe in aliens.
Hmm.
They have to be out there. It's a mathematical impossibility. And people would laugh at me, mock me, all bully me all through high school and all that. And now almost have to fight to find a scientist that will say aliens don't exist. Most scientists will say aliens are out there.
Really? I
Now,
did not know that.
yeah, it's because with the advent of astrobiology that started probably in the 1990s, 2000s, it really opened the floodgates, I think. And so I think most scientists do believe that it's a mathematical inevitability that life exists out there. Now that's all they'll say. They won't go as far as saying that it's intelligent, and they
Hmm.
won't go as far as saying that it's visiting Earth, but at
Hmm.
least they've at least come that far that they acknowledge that alien life probably does exist out there.
Yeah.
And I just watched an episode of For All Mankind a couple days ago. And and towards the end of the latest season, they're looking for life on Mars and on Titan. And maybe they found it, maybe they didn't. I won't put any spoilers out there. But again, so we're seeing that even in the hard sci-fi shows that scientists are out there actively looking for life.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Something because they're having a lot of the new, the disclosure from the government, which is some of it's been pretty good, I have to say. Um, but they're finding that the beings they may look like us, they may really resemble us, but they also might be quite a bit different, but that they might not even really be beings in the way that we have thought about, that
Yeah.
the plasma or
Hmm.
plasma beings or basically orbs
Right.
are another vehicle for consciousness, and that they may have been communicating with us long before now. And then the more that we can, I think, just explore that, I think the more open that people are going to be, to hearing and learning. That
Definitely.
some
And
of
that,
the stuff really may blow our mind. It's not going to be just little, you know, let's just say tall,
yeah.
blonde beings like in the movie Contact.
Right.
It's going to be, a lot more than that. And if you'll remember from the movie Contact, they said that's not even what they look like.
Right. It was just an
That
image.
they purposely chose to
Yeah.
look like her father so that
Mhm.
she wouldn't be scared, basically, or that she'd be more open to that. So, and if anybody has not seen the movie Contact, it's been out. It's a long time, but yeah,
I
no,
used to
it's one of the
dream
best.
of being her at those radio telescopes. That's what I wanted to do, growing
Yeah.
up. I love that movie. And I think that's one of the fun things about me being a chemist is I can think of ways that aliens can be non-carbon based life forms because I understand the chemistry of it all. And so, when people tried to make silicon based life forms, or I was in a group a Facebook group a few weeks ago. Someone wanted to make a mercury-based life form, and I'm just like going, no, that's too far. Can't explain all the chemistry here. It's too complex, but just likely not going to work. And the advantages and disadvantages of silicon-based life form and how unlikely that would be, and why carbon really is probably going to be the most likely form
Hmm.
of alien life out there. Yeah,
Hmm.
silicon-based, it's possible, unlikely, but possible. And but I think what's more fascinating, though, from a chemical perspective, is not the non-carbon based life forms, but the non-water based life forms.
Mm.
Life forms are, have ammonia, liquid ammonia for blood, or liquid methane for blood, things that we might find on the moon of Titan, for example,
Hmm.
because they very likely would have some sort of hydrocarbon-based blood, being the temperature and pressure of that world. And so,
Right.
I absolutely love the infinite diversity and infinite combinations, well, in Star Trek, of the potential of alien life out there.
Yeah. Well, on that note, our time is up.
So
So
quickly.
again, I very much would like to have you on again because there's so many other things that we can talk about that we can get into.
Definitely.
So you are on Facebook and Instagram under Modern Mystic
Modern Mythic
Project.
Project. Yep,
Yeah, people can find you there, and then on your website, Modern Mystic Project, or come to Spirit Fest and meet you in person.
definitely.
Um, so the
All
upcoming one this weekend is in Punta Gorda, 90 vendors. It is our biggest show of the year. A lot of special guests, one including you, Sunday morning at 10:30.
right.
And but just a lot going on. And then we're in Virginia Beach the next week, and that's exciting too. Gonna
I'm
go.
very excited for Virginia Beach.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for your time this
Oh,
evening. I
thank
really
you. I really
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I look forward to doing this again.
Me too.
All right. Thank you, and good
All
night,
right, take care,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you for spending this time with me here on the Sanctuary Network. Tune in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Transformation Network as we gather to share stories, wisdom, and practices that remind us of something essential. Sanctuary isn't just a place you go, it's a space you create in your heart, your home, and your daily life. I hope today's conversation sparked something in you, a sense of belonging, a new idea, or simply a reminder that you are not alone on this journey. If this touched you, please share it with someone who could use a little light. Together, we can grow this circle of sanctuary and inspire a ripple of healing around the world. And don't forget, the journey continues at spiritfestusa.com, thesanctuarynetwork.com, and naturalwellnessexpo.com. And of course, every week right here on Transformation Network. Until next time, may you be well, may you be inspired, and may you live fully in sanctuary.